Hi, Jacob. Thank you for taking the time to be with me today, and Merry Christmas, by the way. We're celebrating Christmas today. I would love for my audience to hear a bit about your background and your studies during your time at Old Dominion University and how that coincided with the evolution of what became May. And how do you think your work in aesthetics theory continues to inform your expressions of beauty?
Hmm. Wow. Yes. Um, so I guess I would answer that in the context of the story, the way that it's played out. I think, like most people, um, my my job wasn't clearly connected to my education in a logical way. Like I didn't go to school for engineering and then become an engineer, or go study history and become a history professor. I went to study the experience of why humans respond to beauty. And since there isn't an obvious major for that, I actually had to work with a group called the Interdisciplinary Studies department to make that. And the way that it works is there isn't a clear cut major. You're able to actually work with two different department heads and kind of combine classes from different sectors um, to get a bunch of different viewpoints into that central question. So for me, that central question was, why do we, as humans, get moved by beauty? And what does physics have to say about that? Or what does philosophy have to say about that? Or music or theater or painting on one side, but then neuroscience on the other, sensation, perception, like what's happening in our cognition. And I was specifically very interested in what's called cross-modal association, or when your senses are engaged in a synesthetic capacity. So synesthesia is when one of your senses is triggered, but it results in multiple senses being experienced. So certain people will have an experience of music, for example, that they'll not only hear, but they'll see. I was interested in what's happening when somebody's hearing something and also causing them to see something, because I'm very interested in how you could create artistry that covers the whole body. So what does it look like to take what we know as harmony in music and sound and extend that into the languages of the other senses? And so then all of a sudden you start to get into some really fun just questions about the nature of how our sensation is connected to perception, and how that perception evokes emotion, and how we categorize things then into meaning, and really orient ourselves based on how the body and the mind kind of coexist. And so I think, while I kind of knew that I wanted to create some kind of artistry out of that, the big surprise has been in realizing how this idea of interdisciplinary studies, which was really the mechanism to pursue my interest, actually has become something that continues to show up as valuable as a mechanism and as an approach for all of the work that I've done since. And so I would say that it's kind of a combination of two things. One, of the conversations between silos or entities that don't normally talk to each other, that I feel like a lot of the real magic happens. And I call that experience being found in translation. And I think that we have a lot of examples of when things get lost in translation. I'm trying to communicate something to you, but it's not quite working. I think that happens a lot. But I think there's this other thing that happens when you have people who have been kind of interested in the same problem, but have been approaching it through different systems. It might be a biology person talking to a chemistry person, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, you're thinking about this too? And there's this light bulb that comes on. You're like, oh, I see what you're doing there. And that actually helps me understand what I'm doing in a better way. And I think that that's something that the world could use more of at the moment. And so a lot of my work at this point in life, both creative expression and then also just, work in the world of connecting things across silos and kind of being a bridge between different languages and different communities, different ideas, and always trying to kind of look to create something that is both beautiful in that kind of almost indescribable way, like the way that beauty shows up in contexts where you wouldn't expect it. I think is at the heart of what I try to bring to any situation that I'm involved in, and that clearly I can trace back to the way that I spent time at school and what I learned, and that's informed both artistry and different kinds of creative projects.
Yeah. So around that time that you were in school, you were also looking for ways to express that in your artistry, and so can you just give us a little bit of background about MAY, what it stands for, and kind of the things that you were successfully attempting to flesh out in your work there?
Yeah, so part of my education, I got to do 2 years of a funded undergraduate research grant. And so I worked with Dr. Nancy Klein in the music department there. And we basically built a series of experiments to study people with synesthesia and the relationship between what they were hearing musically and tonally and the colors that they were seeing visually, and kind of trying to understand what was happening in that context. And so those insights really became the foundation for a band, a practical expression musically and visually, but also this idea of what we called MAE, and MAE, an acronym standing for Multisensory Aesthetic Experience. So really exploring how we as beings have the experience of beauty designed to play out across multiple senses. Yeah, and so that after 2 years, we got to tour the results of that around and present at a bunch of different conferences, and that was amazing on the academic side of things, but really came to life as a practitioner, creating artistry that really began to embody that idea. And over the course of our careers, it's now been 15 years, and put out 7 albums and done 1,600 concerts on 4 continents, and it's been a wild journey. But I would say that the key, I guess, is that the recent successes that we've had in that have come from technology coming up to speed with a vision, right? So all of a sudden we have all of these new tools, whether it's virtual reality or haptics or augmented reality, just different ways of creating a canvas in which to immerse someone in the true beauty of a multisensory aesthetic experience.